keynote speech is titled Transforming Educators Across Border. And why is it important? You would agree with me that the face of education across the globe has totally changed. And as educators, we have to keep emerging and being innovative to keep up with the trend of education, not only in Africa, but in the world. I was asking Mrs. O, why did you choose Mr. Alexander Ayola Okoh to be the keynote speaker? And she said to me, that they were having a conversation a while back, and he was talking about the fact that he had had several meetings with education stakeholders. And every time he deliberates with them on what to do, how to move education to the next level. But sometimes when he sees some of the things they do, he sees the disconnect, and he sees that there is no harmonization with how educators are playing in the sphere many times. And that is why I have the honor of inviting the Director General of the Bureau of Public Enterprise. He has 22 years experience in banking. He is a policymaker, passionate about education. He's a reformer, and is more qualified to address us on this topic because he has worked many years in the private sector and now in the public sector. He is a passionate individual, and he has won a lot of awards in his endeavor towards excellence. He is a member of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council, and I'm sure you would like to hear his voice more than you would hear my voice. And that's why I'd like to invite Mr. Alexander Ayola Okoh as our keynote speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, distinguished educators, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is truly an honor for me to be here today to deliver the keynote address at this seminar with a theme focused on transforming educators across borders. First, please let me congratulate the chief convener of this program, Mrs. Yinka Ogunde, and her team at EduMac Consult, as they host the 15th edition of the Total School Support Seminar and Exhibition. With over 7,000 attendees each year, this initiative represents 15 years of passionate, committed, impactful support of the education sector by creating a platform for all stakeholders to interact, discuss pertinent issues, and devise creative solutions for current challenges in the sector. Please permit me to refer to a statement by a former president of the United States of America, President John F. Kennedy, who once stated that our progress as a nation can be no swifter than our progress in education. I totally agree. Education, ladies and gentlemen, is the foundation upon which societies thrive, having an important role in economic and social development, wealth creation, and political stability. That is why we at the Bureau of Public Enterprises are about to embark on the critical mission of partnering with key stakeholders to reform Nigeria's education system. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is pertinent to note that in contrast to the high standards attained in the 1970s and 80s, the Nigeria's education system has witnessed a gradual decline over the years. This has been due to a number of challenges, including funding, poor educational facilities, and infrastructure deficit. And I'd like to speak to these three dimensions very briefly. First, lack of adequate funding. A significant challenge for the education sector in Nigeria is the lack of adequate funding. Nigeria is yet to allocate the UNESCO prescribed minimum of between 16 to 26% of the annual national budget to the education sector. For instance, in the past 8 years, budgetary allocations to the sector have hovered around 5.9 to 10.7%. And let me just reel out the numbers for the past 8 years. 2016, 10.7%, 2017, 6%, 2018, 7.1%, 19, 5.9%, 2020, 6.7%, 2021, 5.6%, the lowest in 10 years, 2022, 7.9%, and the current fiscal expenditure estimates an 8.2% spend on education. Now, this equates to an average annual of 7.2% over the past 8 years, which is less than 50% of the minimum prescribed by UNESCO. So how now? How? Second, poor educational facilities. Existing educational facilities, especially at the tertiary level, both public and private, are grossly inadequate compared to the number of qualified candidates seeking admission every year. Over 1.6 million candidates have consistently been applying for admission in the last 7 years, but only between 400,000 to 600,000 were offered admission annually due to the limited spaces in the tertiary institutions. Third, infrastructure deficit. The infrastructure deficit in Nigerian schools is quite stark. Many of the available classrooms are not conducive to learning. There are also insufficient laboratories and ICT equipment, and a high percentage of the teachers are either not qualified or lack requisite teaching skills. The global COVID-19 pandemic provided a reality check on the level of ICT infrastructure, especially in Nigerian public schools, with basically all the public schools unable to provide virtual learning capabilities for students. The impact of these challenges, ladies and gentlemen, can be seen and indeed felt quite seriously in recent times. Nigeria is the most populous black nation in the world, with a population of over 200 million people. And an average annual rate, and this is where the challenge is, an average annual rate of population change of approximately 2.6%. Now, to put this in context, it means that every year, additional 26 million people are added to the education challenge in Nigeria. The majority of the country's population, that's up to 60%, is under the age of 25. The implication is that up to 60% of the population, if not more, has been denied access to quality education, which, according to experts, is required for the sustainable growth of any economy. Furthermore, a recent survey conducted by the United Nations Children's Fund indicates that the population of out-of-school children in Nigeria has risen from 10.5 million to 13.2 million, the highest in the world. It also estimates that 1 in every 5 of the world's out-of-school children is in Nigeria. Experts have found a correlation between insecurity, terrorism, and restiveness in countries with higher illiteracy rates. It is also no coincidence that Nigeria, with a rising illiteracy rate and classified in the lower middle income group in the World Bank's Human Capital Index, has one of the lowest ratings. Some of the findings regarding Nigeria in the World Bank's 2020 Human Capital Index make for very bleak reading. 36% productivity level for children born in Nigeria during the pandemic. The average for sub-Saharan Africa is 40%. The average for lower income Middle-income countries is 48%. We are at 36%. Nigeria's productivity level is lower than low-income countries like Burundi and Gambia. Worldwide, only 6 countries were ranked lower than Nigeria: Liberia, Mali, Niger, South Sudan, Chad, and Central African Republic. That's not a good group to belong to. Pre-primary school gross enrollment is 23%, which is lower than the regional average. Gross secondary school enrollment is 44%. The regional average is 48%. While the income group average, that's the lower middle income group that we belong to, the average is actually 70%. We are trending at 44%. However, gross tertiary enrollment is 12%, which is higher than the regional average of 11%, but lower than the income group average of 24%. Furthermore, the financial impact of the current state of the country's education system was highlighted by the CBN governor at the 57th Annual Bankers Dinner of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria in December last year. Exchange outflows to the UK alone had surged to $2.5 billion. If outflows to the US, the rest of Europe, and neighboring African countries, including Ghana, are added, one can fully appreciate the heavy toll this educational exodus has had on our economy in terms of lost revenue and currency valuation. Consequently, except the education sector is reformed, the guiding principle of education in Nigeria, which is to equip every citizen with such knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values to enable him or her derive maximum benefits from his or her membership of society, lead a fulfilling life, and contribute to the development and welfare of the community, may not be achieved. Education reform in other jurisdictions, just to give us some context. A number of countries, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, have embarked on the reform of the education sectors, having understood the immense benefits this will bring to other sectors of their economies. In particular, China, India, Malaysia, who experienced significant challenges, have carried out successful reforms or are in the process of successfully implementing reforms, and their impact is plain for all to see. And that's why we are passionate in the Bureau of Public Enterprises to engage in this reform program. China. So I talked about 3 countries, China, India, and Malaysia. Let's look at China. Prior to the commencement of the education reform in China in 1978, its education sector was in a deplorable state. However, today, China has established for itself the world's largest education sector, with 270 million students enrolled in 514,000 academic institutions. Gross enrollment rate in China in kindergarten rose from 10.6 to 79.6%. Net enrollment, as a result of this reform, net enrollment rate in primary schools rose from 94% to 99.9%. Gross enrollment rate in junior high school rose from 66.4% to 103.5%. Gross enrollment rate in senior high schools rose from 33.6% to 88.3%. Gross enrollment rate in universities rose from 34% to 88%. That's the China story. In addition to facilitating increased access to education, China has also made tremendous progress in enhancing the relevance and quality of education that students receive. Let's look at the India case. In India, the National Education Policy of 2020 is a large-scale 21st century education reform which is built on the pillars of access, quality, equity, affordability, and accountability. The policy is aligned with the 2030 Agenda for India's Sustainable Development, with the aim of transforming India into a vibrant, knowledge-based society. So there has to be, a clear alignment between our education policy and the economic aspirations of the country. The objectives of India's National Education Policy 2020 include: 1, ensuring universal access to all levels of school education, that's preschool to secondary school. Reforms in school curricula with a view to equipping students with 21st century skills and enhancing critical thinking. Assessment of reforms which involve a shift from summative assessment to regular and formative assessment, which is more competency-based, promotes learning and development, and tests higher order skills such as analysis, critical thinking, and conceptual clarity. Financial support is also a pillar, one of the pillars of this reform. Financial support for disadvantaged students in order to improve access to education. Online and digital education in order to provide alternative modes of quality education whenever and wherever in-person modes of education are not possible. So we have to have the kind of alternatives that our IT gurus mentioned earlier on. The third context in terms of reform I like to refer to is Malaysia. In 2012, Malaysia was ranked in the bottom third of 66 countries that took part in the 2012 edition of the OECD's program for International Student Assessment, PISA, an international benchmark for reading, mathematics, and science proficiency at the secondary school level. In 2013, the government moved to address the declining performance of the national school system through the launch of the Malaysia Education Blueprint 2013 to 2025, a reform program aimed at transforming the country's 10,000 state schools and lifting Malaysia into the top third of countries, both in the OECD's program for international students assessment, as well as the trends in international mathematics and science study, carried out by the Institute of the Education Sciences in the US. And they set a target date of 2025 for this. Among the issues to tackle include establishing a clear process to review and make changes to the national curriculum, which was outdated, and improving teachers' training. Malaysia's commitment to reforming the education system is evident in the amount it invests in the sector each year, usually at least 20% of the annual budget for all levels of learning, according to the World Bank. So 20% instead of our 7.2% in Malaysia is allocated to the education sector. The result of this has been a sustained improvement in access to education, with close to universal enrollment at the primary and secondary levels. The way forward for Nigeria. In terms of the way forward, reform is key. We are doggedly, as far as the Bureau is concerned, we are doggedly convinced that reform is key. The Bureau of Public Enterprises was established under the Public Enterprises Act of 1999, and it is the statutory agency of the federal government of Nigeria mandated to carry out sectoral reforms. The Bureau has over the years successfully reformed the telecommunications sector, and that's what's taken us from 500,000 tele-density in terms of lines pre the reform to close to 150 million lines available. Some of the other sectors include banking. So UBA was privatized by the Bureau of Public Enterprises. Power sector, well, there's still a bit of The jury is still out as far as the power sector reform is concerned, but it was a needed thing to do. And then, of course, the pension sector, in addition to others. 3 weeks ago, we concluded and presented to the Federal Executive Council a comprehensive report for the reform of the health sector as well. The BPE now plans to embark on an education sector reform program to radically transform and develop the sector. The objectives of the proposed education sector reform are as follows. 1, initiate a sustainable funding model for education at all levels, which will be implemented through appropriate instruments at both the federal and the subnational governments. 2, improve education delivery systems at all levels. 3, achieve optimal and equitable access at the different levels of education. 4, increase the quality of teachers in primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions by 10% annually. 5, produce graduates that are internationally competitive at all skill levels of education. 6, ensure that curricula are relevant to the needs of the nation and modern society. And 7, obtain top positions in the ranking of universities in Africa and beyond. While the various challenges faced in the education sector in Nigeria may seem extremely daunting, it is crucial to recognize the opportunities that lie ahead. Nigeria possesses immense potential for educational transformation. By leveraging these opportunities, we can create a brighter future for generations to come. For instance, one of the most significant challenges in Nigeria is the issue of accessibility. Many children, especially in the rural areas, lack access to educational opportunities. Development in technology, and I'm happy that some of the speakers earlier had alluded to this. Development in technology offer exciting prospects for education across borders. The widespread availability of the internet, mobile devices, and online platforms has the potential to revolutionize learning. E-learning platforms can reach even the most remote areas, providing access to educational resources and fostering lifelong learning. Embracing digital tools and leveraging technology will enable us to overcome geographical limitations across borders. This should facilitate an increase in the gross enrollment ratio, as well as providing an alternative mode of quality education. In addition, Nigeria has the unique opportunity to incorporate indigenous knowledge and cultural diversity into our education systems. By celebrating our diverse heritage, we can foster a sense of identity, pride, and belonging among learners. This approach promotes cultural understanding, tolerance, and global citizenship, preparing students for the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. Collaboration is another key opportunity we must seize on. We should collaborate with schools and policymakers across the globe, sharing best practices, exchanging educational resources, and establishing partnerships to enhance the quality of education. Cross-border collaboration allows for the exchange of ideas, experiences, knowledge, and innovations, empowering us to address common challenges collectively. Nigeria has already started attracting the sort of schools that our children attend abroad. Charterhouse, an elite school in England, is looking to do what other internationally recognized UK schools have done in such locations as the United Arab Emirates, Hong Kong, and Singapore. That is, export British higher education by establishing local campuses abroad. Charterhouse Lagos is set to open its doors by 2024. Dulwich College, another leading UK academic institution, is highlighting its pedigree to Nigerian parents, and it is just a matter of time before they also take a leap and set up their own campus in Nigeria. So that's competition. We need to encourage this. This will increase access to the same standard of education, challenge our local institutions, reduce forex outflows, and attract forex inflow, as there will be significant positive inflow of education tourism from neighboring African countries. In conclusion, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the challenges and opportunities of transforming education across borders in Nigeria and Africa are significant and interrelated. By addressing accessibility, quality of education, teacher quality, educational inequality, and funding challenges, we can create an enabling environment for learning. Embracing technological advancements, celebrating diversity, and fostering collaboration can be a successful recipe for bridging the gap. May we all continue to work tirelessly to build our education system to produce tomorrow's global leaders with the required and requisite skills and capacity to transform the world right here in Nigeria. I thank you for your kind attention, and may God bless you all.
So, Mr. Alex Okoh, in the medical field, we're encouraged to know our numbers, and thank you for teaching us about the numbers in the education space, because now we know we can't be insular, and we understand that it requires a lot of partnership from the private and public sector, because all our students are going to meet in the marketplace. So thank you for encouraging us not to sit in our own space, but giving us an eagle's eye on what lays ahead for all of us in the education space. Thank you so much. On behalf of TOSSE, we present this to you, and we're going to go back and reflect and definitely understand that we cannot be in a cocoon. We have to be out there and change the narrative of the Nigerian education system. Thank you.
Zach and Mrs. Shoyombo also join us. Barrister Gunde, President of NABS, please also join us. And then we'll be cutting the cake with our distinguished special guest very, very shortly, the anniversary cake, and then our opening ceremony is done.
So let's go. C,